And we should be live now. So happy and warm welcome to the one and only Ben Latour from Canada. Yeah, even though you might not have any clue once he talks in Korean, Spanish, English. What other languages do you speak? German? Like, please introduce yourself and let us know what are you doing and where you're coming from and who do you help actually.
Yes, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Alex here in Panama right now. Right now, I'm in Canada, pretty close to Montreal, although I do spend most of the year somewhere around the Caribbean. I was actually in Panama just a few weeks ago, and I spend my time traveling around in a sailboat. Of course, this is my personal life and where I work from. Professionally, what I do is I work with non-native English speakers who want to be more engaging, more confident, and especially want to sound more natural and clear when they speak English. So that means managing your accent, managing your pronunciation, figure out expressions, or just feeling like yourself when you speak English as well.
Nice. Thanks for letting us know. First of all, of course, I mean, many or most of the guys here know what I'm doing. I help busy professionals, busy business owners to really get to an advanced German level without feeling stressed, overwhelmed, and still having some time left to share with the loved ones in a couple of words said. So, with that being said, let's get right into it. You and me, we both have already a couple of hours, weeks, and years behind us from learning, integrating into new cultures, and connecting with people who are way outside of our comfort zone. So, what would you say? Because since we talk about bridging the gap for experts, what is like, what are maybe the three most important things to look out for and to have an eye on if you really want to have an easier time than you and me had probably with the first couple of weeks or month or so? You in Korea, me in Costa Rica. What is your number one, two, and three?
hmm So one of the things that people don't really think about much, but they always feel is fear. Whenever they're thinking about going to another country, they often think about what are these things that are going to happen? There's a lot of uncertainty when you're moving abroad, and that makes it sometimes difficult. Now, what I've found especially helpful for me and that you can actually use is to leverage that same fear. Use it as a tool, use it as fuel to bring yourself forward. When you're thinking of yourself going to another country, I still remember the first time that I spent a whole day by myself in South Korea. I remember sitting in my little one-room apartment, sitting on my bed, hearing the birds chirping out the window, and thinking to myself, oh my God, I need to go take the bus into town and buy things for my empty apartment. I had lived and moved in different countries many, many, many times already. And then I knew everything was going to be okay. Korea is a safe place. But I was terrified and laughing at myself at the same time. I had these methods, but I had this fear. And this same fear is the same one in many other situations that I use to drive me to learn the vocabulary, learn the expressions, and at least prepare so that in my head, the situation I was about to face was a little bit less scary.
Can
And this is
imagine.
something expats can use. Expats can use this all the time. Because if you think of yourself, okay, I want to move to Germany, I'm going to have to go and make some friends. Okay, great. Where do you want to meet them? What do you want to talk about? What do you want to know about them? That's a great place to start. And as I'm sure you know, Alex, if you focus on the things that you want to achieve, well, you'll bring yourself to believe that you can do it because you focused your energy there. You're not wasting time on things that you don't care about. you become focused and you actually make some good progress.
Indeed, indeed. And it's like the most important thing, and many things why people don't make it or feel they did not have the chance to make it. It's because they focus on the wrong things, right? Instead of focusing on the opportunity, on the excitement, you get stuck in this like fear state where you almost are paralyzed. And of course, you don't get things done if you're not in an, yeah, good emotion, if you're not in a good state mentally. And that's where we need to work on ourselves, first of all, because if I'm super scared of going out and speaking to the lawyer, I mean, I really was in the beginning. I didn't understand anything. I had so much fear about, oh, hopefully this lawyer is not like robbing my money and I don't get my visa at the end of the day because I didn't understand that at that time, you know. My ex girlfriend back then helped me a lot. But being honest, I didn't like it at all. I always like to control certain things, but you can't control anything in the beginning. And that's why you should focus on okay, what is inside, right, of my control? What can I control? So focus on, right, the little steps, step by step, get better, get more confidence through experience, through knowledge. You get way more confidence, more you get more competent, and that's how you little by little, right, go up and up and up the ladder. You feel better. You don't feel like this weird foreigner who is not able to speak to anyone. And until you look around, you have friends all over the place, and you can get like your dream job. No doubt about that. And that's why many people, when they go, like Mexicans, for example, I had a lot of Mexican students, and Mexican guy who went to Germany, and he said, "You know what? I'm in Munich, in Ingolstadt, and I felt like I made it, but then I came there, and I was literally shit scared." Was their words? Yeah, what was his words? And he was like, you know, Alex, like I literally didn't imagine it like that. Like nobody speaks almost English, and I'm like, you know, you're here in Germany, and lots of Germans know English, but not everyone knows it. And especially if you want to work on long term for a German company, you need to learn German. You need to learn how to understand these accents a little bit better. But first of all, focus on what is really like the matter. What's important right now is that you create, right, almost native like pronunciation, so you have no big struggles to actually connect with the guys here. And that's like what I did with Spanish too, because you know the better than anyone else. You need to sound native like. Yeah, you went living in Austria, in Switzerland, I think it was, right? Where you had this experience that I can recall where you had really big struggles first to connect with Austrian guys. Or was it in Switzerland? I can't recall. If you just let us know that real quick so people maybe can empathize a little bit more with your situation and don't look at you as, okay, you're the only one, you have a special gift and a special talent. Of course, you have a teaching, but it's not like that you are so different to others and others are not able to get the very same things done, right?
Yeah, that's right. Uh, Many years ago now, I went to Switzerland for 3 or 4 weeks, and I was living with some people there, Swiss people. And as you know, the Swiss German accent is hardcore, hardcore.
It is.
I had used a little bit of Rosetta Stone beforehand. It's an app that works pretty well, to be honest. Although once I arrived, I was totally unprepared for any conversation with anybody because Guten Morgen becomes Grüezi or Gute Morgen. And I'm like, what is going on? And so I picked up a couple of things there. And then a year later, I went to Austria and I moved to Vienna for about 11 months. And at the time, I was there in school and I had to take classes, not German classes, but I was taking classes in German biology, chemistry, whatever. And that was quite a challenge because number one, my level was pretty basic. Number two, this was pretty advanced vocabulary. And number three, I just wasn't very interested in learning biology and stuff like that at the time. And so that combination made it very tough. But what I did have was that I figured out pretty quickly how to pronounce things and how to sound like I knew what I was saying. My vocabulary was super small, but I knew a couple good expressions. And I knew that if I paid attention to the people around me, I could take things that they were saying, reuse them, and sometimes I'd make mistakes, but at least I was able to identify them based on the facial reactions of people. Now, because I focus on pronunciation first, every time that I extended a new relationship or new conversation, I kind of had it semi-scripted so that I could meet a new person, ask them questions, tell about myself, and then send it back to them. And each time I would do this, the conversation got longer and longer before they said, huh? Where are you from? Because I'd made a mistake.
Mhm. Yeah, which is completely fine, right? At the end of the day, like you already got their trust. Once you're in, you're in. That's like
Mhm.
where many people overthink, but when I make a mistake, blah blah blah. Nothing bad happens if you do a little mistake here and there, right? Like I bet the people wouldn't say, "Okay, babe, please go away. I don't want to talk to you anymore." Of course, this is stuff. This is stuff that you probably imagine in your wildest, worst like situation, but it's nothing that happens in real life. I mean,
Mhm.
otherwise, like, no, it's not going to happen. Yeah, if you're not in a countryside where people are speaking the craziest of the craziest Bavarian, Switzer, or Austrian accent, well, you're good to go. Yeah.
Of course. Although one important nuance that related to this is that for a lot of people, because they do things the opposite way, they try and get a bunch of vocabulary or they learn through things like Duolingo or they don't get the right feedback. Because people are doing things the opposite way, they end up getting stuck with huge lists of vocabulary in their head, and their pronunciation is very bad. And so what ends up happening is when they start a conversation, they actually end up being limited by trying to think back to all these words in their memory. And whenever they say something, it sounds really bad, it sounds super unnatural. And so that makes them feel frustrated and it makes the experience difficult. And it makes the experience difficult for the person you're speaking with. And so, especially for people who are learning, English learners trying to learn another language, they end up trying to learn German, for example, and then they'll
Mhm.
say, Guten Morgen, wie geht es Ihnen? No, and, their pronunciation is very bad. They're thinking a lot. It takes a lot of energy. And so the person on the other side just says, whatever, we'll speak English.
Yeah, 100%. That's
And
like,
unfortunately, for people learning English, a lot of times it's the same. But more people do speak English, but oftentimes these same people don't always have the same amount of patience because oftentimes a lot of English learners, unfortunately, only speak one language. A
yeah,
a lot of English speakers only speak one language. And so people come to the US or Canada, for example, and then there's no backup. They can't find anything else. It's English or nothing. And so that is an advantage, but also a challenge because you have nothing to fall back on. And sometimes that means, well, it's just too much effort to talk to you. I'd rather spend my energy with somebody else.
yep, indeed. That's about it, right? That's about it. Why people ask many times, hey, but why do I need a language coach? You don't need one. I mean, you can like literally learn with these language books if it pleases you. Yeah, you can learn that on your own for the next 2 or 3 years. Going to C1, wow, and then you wasted a lot of time, a lot of energy, and you still probably don't sound like a native speaker, right? And instead, like what we both pretty much do. from the beginning, we focus and stress the proper pronunciation, like all the time. Like every day, we test our students, clients, um, on the pronunciation, sending out voice messages, back and forth feedback, so they actually can grow their confidence in days or weeks, right? And I think that's the most crucial part. And then, of course, focusing on the sounds, right? A little bit of my side, and I would love to hear some tips on stressing the English proper, like a proper English pronunciation, like in the ah, ooh, yeah, ow, yeah, house. Yeah, like many people, like house is this this house. Yeah, like you need to stress that all the u sounds. Yeah, it sounds completely different if you have a complete word like Änderung, which is change, and you don't pronounce it Änderung, like weird, like movement with your mouth. No, you pronounce it actually like if it would be an E. And if you have these little um, tips from the beginning, you don't get overwhelmed all the time and you don't stress yourself out. And what happens magically, I push my students really hard to speak if they live in Germany, Austria, Switzerland, but more Germany and Austria, being honest, since I'm not speaking the Switzer accent yet, you know, and like to speak to foreigners, yeah, and then tell me how it went. Because one thing is, many times, I don't know if you experience that too, that your students get really comfortable, really like they trust you a lot. But when it comes to speaking with somebody else, they get paralyzed somehow because it's like somebody out of their comfort zone. So I have an extra goal weekly. You should approach 4 to 5 new guys at the street, you know, and then you actually get used to it and you deal with these emotions that are coming up, with this nervousness, with this anxious feeling of, oh, am I saying that right or not? And then shifting to the other person instead and saying, hey, I'm not focusing on what is going on here. I'm focusing on the other person, right? What could, like, as you said, it already really great in the beginning, focusing, okay, what would be interesting for the person in front of me? What could I ask him, her, that would be engaging? And that's, I think, is a great tool on about like not being stuck in your head, just focusing the energy to the other person. You will see how much easier conversation will be and how much more fluent. What's your experience about that?
100%. And this is a tool that applies not just to learning a language, but just to communication overall.
Yeah.
Asking open questions is super valuable because when you ask an open question, not what is your name or do you like cheese, but what was your experience like moving to Germany? Or how was your time in school? Now, these are kind of open questions where a person can give you a short answer, but if they're engaged in a conversation and they're curious, well, then they'll tell you a lot of things. And what they don't necessarily realize is that when they're speaking their native language or whatever, they're giving you a lot of subconscious or sublingual information that you can then use to improve your vocabulary, your pronunciation, the expressions you're using, simply by paying attention and actively listening, not just to what they say, but to how they say it. And so a great example of this is, wenn wir zum Beispiel auf Deutsch reden. Ja, also wir können für einen Moment auf Deutsch reden. And then if I immediately switch back to English, then my pronunciation will sound like I'm still speaking German.
Yeah, indeed.
Why?
Yeah, go
The
ahead.
way that I'm moving my mouth is the same. If I move my mouth the same way as another language, well, then I'm going to sound like I'm speaking that language. And
Yeah.
so, whatever, for your students, if you're asking somebody in German a question, listen to how they're saying these words. If you ask them a question in English, for example, If you ask them a question in English and they respond to you in English with a strong German accent, for example, when they are speaking, they are moving their mouth like this, and then they're making small intonation changes. And even if their grammar is perfect, it sounds strange. Und dann, wenn du dann Deutsch reden willst, dann kannst du dann einfach nur diese gleiche Mundbewegungen verwenden und dann hört es sich gleich aus.
Genau so ist es, ja. That's very, like you said, yeah. If I speak like I would speak in German, I sounded super scripted and would sound like the Arnold Schwarzenegger. And we can do it, we can make it. And, like it's just fun, yeah, to play around once you dominate this pronunciation, right? In Spanish too, like my girlfriend says that all the time. Oh, don't sound like a Tico. Yeah, I don't like the accent so much, and I stress it even more. Yeah, because it's funny, and like that is what people don't realize. People react so good when you don't need to speak like from today till tomorrow, like native. No, but get used to it. Into engaging conversations. Yeah, focus on the syllables, the tonality, everything, and now little by little you are one of them, yeah, and you have an easier time to be in Costa Rica, in Germany, Austria, Korea, right, and have the best time of your life. That's what it is about at the end of the day, isn't it?
A lot of a lot of people forget this pretty simple thing, that as a human being, we all have the same tools. Your mouth, my mouth, we have the same teeth and tongue and all these things. If we just use them in the same way, we're going to sound the same. Yeah, maybe our voice is a bit different, but that's who you are. But if I
Yeah,
move my mouth like you, I'm going to sound like you. And if you move your mouth like me, you're going to sound like me. That's just part of being human. And it's fun, it's magical. Just use it and learn it. And one of the fun things about this is that even though you don't need to be perfect right away, if you focus on what people sound like when they actually speak the language, and you let go of the way that you've thought about language so far, of how you've spoken, especially your language, then you can start to embrace how people say things in that language. And from the beginning, if you're starting from zero, then you can say things the same way that they're doing it, as closely as possible, using the same sounds that they're using. And that's really powerful, because as I experienced, and as I'm sure you experienced too, when you go to another country and you say things in that language and it sounds exactly the same, but the person knows that you're not from there, you get
yeah, yeah. I love that.
yeah. So, a common example of when, for example, when I was in Austria, I
Mm.
very quickly learned the phrase, excuse my language, but "Herr's geschissene," which is, it's just like an absurd phrase. It's like, "What's up, asshole?"
Yeah,
But that phrase, I learned to say that exactly in that way. And then when I would say that to people, they would say, "What the heck? Who is this guy?" And because they already knew, it's like, "Oh yeah, this is Ben. He's from Canada." And then I was like, "Hey, geschissene, wie geht's?" And then, what?
yeah,
And then break people out of their mental, framework, and then suddenly they're open because they hear themselves in you, and
yeah.
that's being human. That's fun.
Yeah, indeed, indeed, and you get used to, like, maybe like in Austria, or sometimes. I mean, I work for Austrian company, so Austrians are sometimes rough, even though they're like kind-hearted and warm once you know them. But in the beginning, they can be a little bit rougher than other um, parts that you used to, like other countries you used to, probably, yeah, especially if you're from the US, where it's a little bit, hey, hello, how are you, and so on, a little bit warmer from the beginning right away, or Germany, but Austria is just not the same. But that doesn't mean that people are bad or they're like doing you wrong. No, you just need to get used to it. I mean, what people many times forget is like the country doesn't need to adapt to you. You need to adapt to the country, and not the other way around. Yeah. And when I hear, oh yeah, Germany is so bad, and the Germans and this and that, and I'm like, but did you ask yourself the questions? Did you do enough work to actually get used to adapt to the culture, and then being able in a position where you really easy can have a proper opinion? And then comes a no. And of course, then, okay, well, why? And many times then you have, it's like any other human, they have insecurities. They feel bad about making mistakes. And that comes many times from this, yeah, from the school, right? I think, where we program to, oh, mistakes are bad. Oh my God, Alex, what is wrong with you? For example, if you hear that once in your, yeah, in time at school, university, wherever, you are already kind of programmed to avoid any mistake possible. But when it comes to learning languages, right, you should do a lot of mistakes if you get a proper communication coach on the side, feedback daily, weekly. Because if you want to avoid mistakes, it's like wanting to start a business without doing mistakes. Like, okay, I don't want to do mistakes. Like, Brad, you better don't start a business at all. Like, if I, like, it's like doing business, like moving somewhere else. Oh, I want to move to Panama and I want you to do everything perfect. No, that's not the right way to approach such a big goal like learning a language or moving abroad. You can't, right? You simply need to feel a little bit, yeah, stupid, like a rookie. Like for myself, I try again, like to put myself in many like situations where I feel like literally the worst in the room, like the biggest beginner. Like for example, I started a salsa course with my girlfriend, and damn, like I really enjoyed the first time, but the second, the third time was so fast, way too fast for like my German, my German like stiffness or tightness, so to say, and it was annoying. It was not the nicest feeling, but I know I went through this many times in other areas of my life, and it's just part, and it humbles you again. Okay, that you are not over everything, and many times I don't know what your hint on that is. It's like when you get, yeah, older, when you're a grown up, when you're an adult, professional, and so on, you lose the relationship to how it was when you started something from the first time, right? And you see yourself as the professional, super confident. I can rock everything. I'm the best at everything. No, you're not. You're not. Just try something new, and you see how much you suck at it. Yeah, I experienced it now in the third week, and it's a good learning again, right? It's a good learning to really stay on top of your game, on really like thinking, okay, how was it exactly when I moved to Costa Rica? Sometimes it's even hard to remember because I'm so used now to speak Spanish. Así que bueno, en este caso podemos hablar un poco de español porque tu español también es impecable. Um, pero no fue siempre así, ¿no? La gente a veces uno le ve la cara de, ese es un profesional, él nació con ese talento espectacular, que nació a hablar así, sino más, el acento como el que quisiera, el tico, el panameño, o colombiano, acento colombiano. Papi, tú sabes, ¿no? Y bueno, así hablan los colombianos muchas veces, ¿no? Pero, ¿qué es tu experiencia en ese caso, no? Porque tu español también es muy bueno, pero ¿por qué es tan bueno? Porque has vivido un tiempo en Latinoamérica, ¿no? Creo que era. Y también que te metiste en esas situaciones, como has mencionado, donde tenías que prestar mucha atención al acento y la forma como otros hablan, porque al final del día eso es inevitable. Eso o tener un coach de idiomas al lado tuyo que te da una realimentación diaria, semanalmente, para que puedas avanzar así, nomás. Que,
No puede. No, pues he pasado un rato en países latinoamericanos, pero no he vivido en Latinoamérica. Cuando yo era bien joven, pasé una semana en Puerto Plata, República Dominicana, y eso fue la primera vez que pasé ningún tiempo en un país hispanohablante. Entonces, yo era joven, entonces con mi mamá y con mi familia, pasemos una semana en un all inclusive, en un resort, y después entremos en las favelas, en los barrios,
mm,
para, para ver gente y ver cómo se vive la gente en República Dominicana. Y con mi familia, yo encontré a un nuevo amigo, un dominicano, que solo hablaba español y yo no hablaba español en este momento.
mm,
Pero hablaba un poco de francés yo
mm,
y tras esto y tras escuchar, yo aprendí rápidamente que si yo quiero entender lo que dice, tengo que escuchar bien las palabras que utiliza y si creo que entiendo lo que está diciendo, puedo utilizar esas mismas palabras y si les uso en la misma manera que él le usa, pues el sonido total será el mismo que él. Y
mm.
claro que había muchas errores. Me acuerdo todavía es que am, me faltaba la palabra el campo.
Mm,
Estuvimos en el campo. Yo me gusta el campo, yo vivo en el campo. Pero en francés se dice la campagne. Entonces,
mm.
yo decía, me gusta la campaña.
Claro, cómo no, hay que intentar
Ajá. Y en
hacer
ese momento, yo todavía me mira como, ¿qué está diciendo? La campaña. Sí, vivo en la campaña.
con mucha confianza. Esa es la palabra en español.
Wow. Me miraba así, ¿de qué está diciendo? Y entonces este movimiento, y es posible que no era intencional este movimiento,
Mm,
pero podría ver tras tus ojos que esa palabra no valía.
claro.
Entonces, pues en este momento no he conocido es la buena palabra del campo, pero eso fue un error. Y tras esto me decí que, bueno, tengo que estudiar un poco más. Y el año próximo pasé un momento en Guatemala,
Mm,
pero cuando llegué en Guatemala, hablaba un poco como así y hablaba como un gringo un poco.
ok.
Y los guatemaltecos se reían de mí. Y no
Mm,
me gustó esto.
claro,
Entonces, uso la misma manera de pensar y de escuchar para ver que, pues, si hablo como ellos, voy a hablar como ellos. Bien sencillo. Entonces tenía que escuchar, ok, si dicen un martillo, si digo un martillo, estoy hablando español como si hablo inglés.
mm,
Entonces voy a parecer como si estoy hablando inglés. Se van a reír de mí. Entonces, un martillo, martillo, martillo. Es más similar, más natural y más sencillo de hablar con gente porque parece que estoy hablando el mismo idioma.
exacto,
Y claro que ahora estoy haciendo errores y hoy en día casi nunca hablo español,
claro.
pero
Pero a pesar de eso, hablas bien, ¿no? Hay que ser realista también al final del día. Hablas fluidamente, claro que con errores, pero pues no has vivido como yo, ya como casi 2 años y medio acá, casi 11 meses, entonces como 4 años por ahí, o más que 4 años en Latinoamérica. Entonces, obviamente mi español va a ser un poco más fluido que el tuyo, porque yo he vivido tanto tiempo acá que tenía mucho tiempo a asimilar el acento, la forma de hablar, el montón de personas que tengo que hablar, con cuáles tengo que hablar. Los estudiantes, a veces hispanohablantes que yo tengo, no tuvo enfoque principalmente en bueno, no únicamente, pero mucho contenido tuyo es en francés, ¿no? Enfocado en gente con la habla francesa, no en la habla española. Eso no significa, chicos, los que entienden el español, alemanes, lo que sea, muchos alemanes ya ven ayudado, ¿no? ¿Cierto? Yo creo que un 2 mínimo, ¿no? Con la habla, porque muchos alemanes tienen un tremendo problema. Incluso yo, en el inicio en Panamá, me ha ayudado mucho también a hablar contigo semanalmente, ¿no? En el inicio de nuestros negocios para, pues, ayudarnos, ayudándonos en muchos sentidos y pues ya conectando juntos. Y chicos, si una vez saben cómo, ¿no? Acercarse a un acento, cultura, etcétera, en el sentido de que cómo suena ese vocal, cómo suena esa tonalidad de la gente de Panamá, Costa Rica, Canadá, Estados Unidos, donde sea, pues la verdad, nada más tienes que entrenar tus oídos y poco a poco vas a sonar como cualquier otro de ellos. Pero obviamente necesitas las herramientas que nosotros tenemos y trabajamos duro por yo 7, 8 años, yo creo que tú un poco más que yo, eh, y que nos costó un montón de trabajo, horas, semanas, años, y ustedes lo van a recibir así, ¿no? En el, eh, en el plato, ¿eh? En el plato de oro, ¿no? Y lo vas a aprender en semanas, meses. Por eso es posible que otros aprenden los idiomas. Y claro, no todo como nativo, pero muchas cosas en 3, 4 meses o 6 meses se puede aprender para que tú llegas a un nivel que tú te puedes defender, puedes manejar conflictos en el trabajo, puedes entrar en entrevistas de trabajo con confianza y obviamente se abren otras oportunidades y de eso se trata, ¿sí o no?
No, claro. Y uno que es bien importante de acordarse que hablar con un acento es hablar con el filtro de su propio idioma. Si
Sí,
puedes hablar con fluidez, tienes el vocabulario que necesitas por tu situación, pues tienes que escuchar a la gente con quien hablas y habla tras el filtro de ese idioma que quieres aprender. Escucha a la gente y vas a hablar con ellos, como ellos. Y es el mismo, si quieres hablar alemán, lo que yo lo he hecho es que pasé un tiempo en Austria aprendiendo las palabras que necesito para las situaciones que necesito. Si me preguntas algo de arquitectura, igual en inglés no lo conozco.
sí, claro que sí, eso no es
No
tu
necesito
nicho.
esas palabras. Igual si soy nativo.
Sí,
Entonces,
claro.
si quieres hablar de con alguna gente de igual de qué, tienes que pensar qué es para mí el más importante y pones un focus para esto y pues,
Eso es. Y eso
y
es,
tienes-
y como dices, muy bien, ¿no? Y yo sé que ayudas a mucha gente en muchos sentidos, pero me encantaría, I would like to know more about like who who you like focus on helping so far. Like, okay, it's like to have a broader view of that. You know what I mean? Like, who did you help so far? I know, I think an agency owner from Germany, what I have in mind directly popping up. But what else? Just for people to understand, it's like possible for anyone, yeah, to really pronounce almost native like, yeah, like you,
Mhm.
yeah, and in the case, yeah.
I just had a funny realization, and I'll answer your question, but I had this funny realization that we were speaking in Spanish and then you switched to English. And for that time, I had forgotten that we were speaking in Spanish. Well, and this is actually a very good tip for anybody who's watching that if you want to speak a language and you want to feel comfortable in that language and you want to sound natural, do not speak through the filter of that language. Be in the gear, in that personality, be there in that language, so that eventually when you're speaking there, you might feel like there's a smaller kind of bubble that you can expand to. You might feel like you can't stretch out into the darkness so much as in your native language. But if you're fully into that mode, you will eventually start growing into it, as opposed to trying to apply from one language and stretching into the new one. You'll always sound weird. You'll always feel like somebody else or unnatural or uncomfortable because you're not in that place. You can't use the skills to climb a tree when you're in a swimming pool.
Mm, good one.
You have to adapt to the situation. When you take your camera, your camera might have a portrait mode, and your camera might have a landscape or an action mode. And those are good things to use, but you have to use the right one for that situation. And until you develop the new automatic mode for that, use your conscious application, put it in the manual mode until you figure out what the right settings are for that language. So that's a quick note here that I wanted to share, but I'll answer your question, Alex. So your question was, what kind of people have we worked with? And was that your question exactly?
Yeah, pretty much. Loved your like take on that because, like, of course, it's like super important to have that in mind, not thinking in your own, yeah, habitat, so to say, right? And like, even though my English still to the day of today is not perfect, because I speak sometimes so much Spanish, I know how to correct myself. I my accent is relatively on point, and that's what it is about, right? To just feel confident, like as much as possible. Like once you get to a certain level, and to be yourself, right? Be yourself in that very language, and it can be different, right? In Spanish, in English, in German, in Korean. Whatever language you speak, yeah, Switzer German or Austrian German. I speak to Austrians in a pure Bavarian accent from the little small village I grew up, and it's like I feel different. Yeah, I feel different. It's just another character type almost. Yeah? I'm not different completely, of course, but you adapt to the situation, and that's I think what you meant to say, and I think it's a very very good point. Now let's.
Yeah,
You,
one last, I'll answer your question. One last thing on this is that, yeah, you might feel different, but you have to be willing to let go of the version of yourself that you've been to become the version you can become. And a simple example, like when something is delicious or something is gross, you'll say that differently in different languages. Like when I do this in Korean,
Mhm.
you eat something like, wow, 대박, 맛있어. Whereas in English, it's like, that's really good. Or if something is gross, in French, I'll say, arc. Ah, c'est dégueu. But
No.
in German, I'll say, veh. And like I would never make the sound "veh" in any language. In German, like, that's just how it is. "Veh,"
Yeah.
ew, ach. Right? These are different ways of saying the same thing. But if you step into one mode or the other, one language, you express even pure emotion through that language, and that's being real. That's where you really start to have a lot of fun with it.
Indeed. Love it.
So to your question, yeah, the people that we've worked with are all kinds of people. We did work with one person who is an agency owner from Germany. He was having some difficulty creating some partnerships, and he was going to Bali and Dubai and connecting with people in the States and things like this. And he had this very stereotypical German accent. And whenever he was talking, he was always making this kind of sounds. And when he was doing things, and it was sounding kind of like in the movies. And when you are talking in the movies with a strong German accent, people have a strong mental association with maybe the Nazis or the efficiency or something like this. And this is sometimes good because they think you are smart, but then they think you are also a bad person. And this is not helpful. And so
Indeed.
we help get into that kind of English mode. So whenever he's speaking, he can pronounce things with the TH, and he can make the differentiation between, uh, wit and with or nut, not, all kinds of different things, but he became more comfortable speaking in that mode. And this is generally what we do with our clients. We help our clients get from sounding like they speak their native language, feeling uncomfortable, and then feeling fluent and confident and capable in English. So that whenever you're giving a speech or giving a presentation, making a phone call, or just meeting somebody on the street, you can be yourself and you can feel big. And
Yeah,
that's what our clients look for, whether it's through better business opportunities or pitching their startup. That's generally what we help them for.
love it, Ben. That's so amazing. Like that's so amazing in my opinion because it's not just the typical okay. Like let's just take a couple of English lessons. We can get there in 2 3 years. No, like literally focus on personalized feedback. Focus on what you need to a situation. It's interesting. It's fun. You can enjoy it because people are like, oh, but yeah, learning German isn't that a hassle? Isn't that like uncomfortable? Isn't that like something super annoying? And then they come to my courses and they, wow, that's like actually fun. They log all the time. They can have fun. They can be themselves. Express themselves who they would like to, because that's should be always the end goal, right? And it doesn't matter if it's like currently like one of my latest students is from Panama, worked for the United States um, mm, as well, yeah, as a diplomat, and you know he is so motivated. In like 4 weeks or so, he sounds like really, really native like already, and he has so much fun, and it's just like awesome, epic to acknowledge and to see when people really are able to be their truest self, right? To express themselves from a point of view that is enjoyable, that is fun, that is um, like really like making them believe, okay, it's way more possible that they thought it is, because he wanted to like maybe long term move to Germany and work for the German government, or having a position at the Panamanian embassy in Germany. And I bet he can get there, when he keeps going like that, when he just puts in the work, okay, like what is work, like, I mean, I just can't speak for myself. I teach certain methods like the space repetition system, mnemonic filter, and so on. That makes it more fun, that makes it easier, and that just makes it way faster to improve and learn new stuff. And I think that's super, super crucial, right? Right? Because like at the end of the day, it's not only okay getting feedback regarding pronunciation, getting feedback on XY topic. No, you should aim to learn it fast. It shouldn't need to take you 3 hours, 3 hours, 3 years, 3 hours better. How epic. But 3 years to learn a language and to really be proficient, yeah, with it. Like that's just um, not realistic when you have certain goals, right? And if you are really ambitious, you can get it done and get to this type of results way faster. I mean, what would be your like aha moment that you had either in your personal life that brought you to a breakthrough, or one of your students that probably got a job that she did not believe they could get? Do you have a good example regarding that?
Oh, so many. What can where do I start? So I can think of one of our clients who runs a law firm in Paris,
Mhm.
and he had pretty much reached the career cap, but his goal is to grow his business. And he had a very strong accent, French, wasn't able to feel confident or express himself well. And through working together for a few months, he was actually able to give a speech and a presentation as one of the expert speakers to a startup conference with thousands of people in the audience in English. And
Wow.
afterwards, people congratulated him and say, "Wow, your English is so good. Oh my goodness, that was fantastic." And they treated him after this conference, because his English was so good, they treated him like the expert, not just as, some French guy or talking to him about baguette and croissant. They actually, were talking about the subject. And so this is one of our examples. Another is, again, a
Nice.
French woman who moved to Canada and wanted to start her business, moved from France to Canada. And in the process, she realized that she wanted to have English speaking clients, but she was unable to help them or find them or serve them until she improved the way that she speaks, because her job and her industry is very much about communication and the relationships and how you sound. And it's important for their clients to become comfortable with her voice and for it to be very clear what she's saying. Again, within a few months, she was able to have easy conversations, very smooth. People understood her very clearly. And she moved from, "What are you saying?" to, "Oh, your English is so good," to simply responding naturally as though she was an English speaker. And it's
Beautiful.
funny is when you grow and you get better and better at the language, at first there's the initial where you don't feel good and people don't see you as very good. Then there's the middle where people compliment you on your language ability. And then eventually you get so good that people stop complimenting you because they just assume that you've always spoken that way.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
For those people who are trying to learn a language, getting to the point where people stop complimenting you is at the same time less of an ego boost because you don't hear it, but remind yourself, remember that this is actually the point when you know you're getting very good because people have stopped pointing it out. They just assume you're a pro and you've always been that way.
Indeed. Nobody was born like that.
Hmm.
Otherwise, like, maybe if you were born in Switzerland, they teach you Italian, German, English, and maybe even Spanish. Well, then lucky you. But otherwise, nobody was having these gifts, right? As well as like things like when we help our clients with two. That's like something I think sometimes in my marketing is not so shown, like doing speeches. For example, like I myself, um, like was super anxious and nervous a couple of years ago, and then I prepared myself because I worked for an Austrian company actually, and you needed to speak in front of 30, 50 people, and that made me super, super nervous. I had sweaty hands. My voice was breaking down. All what you can imagine was happening in the first, second time where I needed to speak in front of them because you had a good month. You sold whatever amount of stuff, and then I worked so hard, but I said that will not ever happen again to me. That I feel so ashamed of speaking in front of what 50, 80, 100 people whatsoever. So I worked really hard on that skill until I made three more, I think three more attempts where I spoke in front of lots of people, and boom, people were like almost forgetting about it in an instant because they felt like I'm present, I was engaging, I made fun, I was being able to speak from my true self, I was having a blast, I was really enjoying the yeah now, and you see almost only thinking about Austria makes me almost changing my English accent again. That's so funny. Like, that's how deep these memories can go. And how much you can get attached or not attached, yeah, to certain things. I think this non-attachment to either fear or success is super crucial too, because if you get your ego all filled up, and then you make a little mistake and you're like, oh my god, I did this and that mistake, that is not helpful as well. So that's why the right mentality, the right tools, right, with feedback consistently is so crucial on one hand, and on the other hand is like, for example, this year I almost forgot about how good or how much I worked for like doing speeches, and I did a speech in German, um, the wedding of my brother, and I was actually blown away from the good responses, the laughter, the applauses. Of course, it was a wedding only, and but it was, I don't know, 120 people, and I wasn't doing any speeches for 6 or 7 years or so. So that's why I'm like, okay, maybe I should do the same in English and Spanish. So now I'm looking for opportunities where I actually can put myself into this very uncomfortable situation again, where I need to do speech in English and Spanish. Yeah. And I think that's what it is about. You need to put yourself into the situation, find a solution, breathe in, breathe out, focus on a proper breathing too, because I think that's super crucial. If you feel nervous, if you feel anxious, well, guess what? That's completely normal. Like 100 millions of people are in this very same situation right now. Just focus on breathing slowly into your belly, right? And this all things that you and me help with. I would say. So please let us know, like, because many people are like, okay, but that is not has nothing to do with they're teaching German or English. I bet you have lots of exercises to make it easier to actually be in the moment. What is something that you guys actually teach that helps everyone of your students pretty much?
Hmm. Well, earlier you touched on this. One of the big things is actually experience. Putting yourself in more and more challenging situations that are closer and closer to your objectives will make the whole thing seem a lot easier. Yeah, a lot of the times people say that it takes years and years and years to learn a language, but that's because they're just not living the language so much. When people spend their time just learning in a limited class context, but then don't actually go and do those things that they want to be able to do, well, they end up being stuck because they're scared of the bigger and more stressful situations. They don't have the vocabulary because they haven't anticipated or lived those situations. But also, well, they live a very limited life. And that makes it much harder to have interesting conversations because you don't have interesting things to say. So, one of the best ways to be a good speaker is to live a good life. And when you're happy with the things that you're living and experiencing, the ability to express it is just one quick skill that you can apply to that same real life experience. And that makes a huge difference. In terms of concrete practical tactics, one simple technique that I like and that I've taken from news anchors is one that involves bringing your voice down back into your chest. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is that if you want to speak more in English, compared to if you want to speak in English with a Spanish accent, you speak a little bit more up here. Or when you're speaking in English with a more of a French accent, you are speaking a little bit through your nose and your throat. And when you're speaking English, especially in North American English, you're going to be speaking a lot more from your chest.
Mm,
And
nice.
so a simple exercise that you can do to do this is to try and bring your voice box down and make the resonance come out of your chest. So I'll do it one time just so you can see it, but it's a useful technique that you can use overall. And I like to use non-words, like in this case, ding dong, bing bong, king kong.
Mhm,
It doesn't mean anything. Don't focus on the meaning.
mhm.
And so you can start high. Ding dong, bing bong, king kong. Feel the vibrations around your nose, the top of your throat. Ding dong, bing bong, king kong. Right? Very high voice. Now, if you were to repeat the same thing, but each time you say ding dong, bing bong, king kong. Deep breath in your belly. Ding dong, bing bong, king kong. Ding dong, bing bong, king kong. Ding dong, bing bong, king kong. And you do this over and over and over again, which you might have noticed already that the quality of my voice has changed. I do it looking up. Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. And so already, just through that quick exercise, the quality of your voice, the resonance of your voice changes. And so you can become more of a belly breather, and your voice has that carrying energy to it. And it's very powerful. And it makes a big difference between, good morning, how are you? Good morning, how are you? And
Yeah.
whether you're a man or a woman, whoever, this is the same very useful strategy because it helps you step into where you are and breathe more, be more present. This
Yes.
multi-billion-dollar industry for meditation, relaxation, and so is language.
So it
Being
is.
present, being good at those things is kind of the same thing.
Indeed. Indeed. And that one goes, yeah, with the other, 100%. And love what you told us there and this little exercise that is no doubt helpful for everyone who is listening, everyone who is watching that in the yeah, rewatching that probably. These are really, really practical tips on how to sound pretty much native like in making these pauses, right? These pauses. Many times, especially Spanish speakers, like they try to speak German as they would speak like the same velocity as Spanish. Doesn't work. You can say Höchstgeschwindigkeitsbegrenzung, which is speed limit, like Höchstgeschwindigkeit. It doesn't come out.
So,
Yeah, it's not working. Yeah, you can do that in Spanish. Sin ningún problema, yo puedo hablar muy rápido en español y la gente me entiende perfectamente. Pero das ist nicht möglich auf Deutsch. Auf Deutsch muss ich langsamer sprechen. Wegen diesen zusammengesetzten Wörtern. Ja, auch wir Deutsche, wir können nicht so schnell sprechen in unserer Sprache, als wie jetzt auch im Englischen zum Beispiel, finde ich, spricht man auch ein bisschen schneller. Im Spanischen ja sowieso. Das ist ein Singen, ja, das du von dir gibst. Ja, das ist dieser neue Charakter, wie du schon gesagt hast. Ja, das ist ein anderes Feeling. Da musst du eintunen, damit du wirklich diese volle, ja, Bandbreite hast. Und das musst du üben, ja, damit du nicht klingst wie, ja, eben ein Ausländer auf Spanisch. Ja. Si no quiero hablar así como la gente cuando van a otros países, que no quiero, pero quiero esto y lo otro, por favor, dame esto y vamos a hacer algo. Y bueno, la gente, the guys don't react the same way, of course, if you speak like that. It's just
mhm.
happened.
Und das, ja, also wenn wir über Geschwindigkeit und so reden, ja, also ich war vor ein paar Wochen mit einem Kunden und dieser Kunde wollte ein Video machen, das war ein Sales-Video. Und der war mit seine Kollegen und der wollte dann auf Englisch natürlich reden. Und obwohl das eigentlich klingt, ja, der ist der Kunde von mir und der hat also diese Technik und alles so und so weiter, das alles gelernt, der wollte das natürlich machen. Aber inzwischen, da der spricht vor der Kamera, aber dann spricht er mit seinen Kollegen. Aber dann redet er plötzlich auf Französisch. Diese Mundbewegung, dieser Rhythmus, diese Art und Weise zu sein, wurde dann auf Französisch wieder geregelt und das macht es dann also schwierig und unnatürlich auf Englisch zu reden, ja. Und also jetzt kann ich das spüren, ja. Also wir haben früher auf Englisch geredet und auf Spanisch, aber jetzt, dass ich auf Deutsch rede, desto weiter ich rede, desto natürlicher es wird, desto leichter. Warum? Ja, weil ich mich einfach dazu gewöhne. Ja, also du redest auf Deutsch, okay, ich lerne, wie das geht, ich höre zu und dann kann ich das machen. Ja. Und wenn Spanischsprecher Englisch reden wollen oder Deutsch reden wollen, die versuchen das ja, Maschinenwaffenstil zu machen. Ja. Und obwohl Deutsch schon zusammen verbunden sein kann, die Wörter werden ein bisschen einsamer, ja.
Yeah.
Also ein bisschen so wie die Kultur, ja. Also die Leute in Deutschland sind nicht einsam, aber die stehen ein bisschen ja, mit sich selbst, ja. Und Leuten in Lateinamerika oder Spanien und so weiter, ja, die umarmen sich gern, ja, die sagen Hallo, die tanzen, die bewegen sich, das ist alles locker.
Yeah.
Und ja, in Deutschland und Österreich und sowas, ja, wenn man kein Bier hat, dann machen wir das nicht so, ja.
Sind
Klar
kälter.
schon, ja. Es
Nicht.
kommt drauf an, mit wem du redest, aber ja, die Sprache ist nicht so verbunden und ist nicht so schnell. Und du kannst deine Punkte einfach machen mit weniger Wörter, größere Wörter, aber Deutsch ist eine gute Sprache, um Dinge zu erklären oder zu beschreiben. Ob
Yeah.
man auf Deutsch spüren kann? Ja, schon. Ob man das auf Spanisch macht? Viel lockerer. Und das ist halt die Schönheit des Lebens, ja, der Sprache. Und man soll das schon lernen, ja. Es gibt,
Absolut.
ja.
Absolut. Sehr cool, was du da gesagt hast, Ben. Ja, sehr, 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 sehr interessant. Und diese Vielfalt, diese Facetten, ja, dieses facettenreiche ja, Topic, ja, dieses facettenreiche Thema, ja, das ist halt, da könnte man Stunden jetzt noch weiterreden. Ja, das ist auch fasziniert uns beide, ja, das merkt man eben, die Stunde ist vorbeigegangen wie nix, ja. Das ist ja schon mal auch wieder ein gutes Zeichen, aber ich glaube, wir haben hier sehr viel Mehrwert gebracht, ja. We gave a lot of value here, and that was the end goal. Guys, if you have any special wishes for next live lives that we for sure plan once or twice a month, let us know any specific topics that we should talk about. Just let us know, and we will focus on that on our next live. Now, just to wrap that up little by little, yeah. And what would be something that you would not be able to sleep tonight if you wouldn't share it right now at the call? Yeah, is there something that you definitely would like to share before? Of course, I will tell them how and where they can find you.
Yeah, well, to anybody watching here, if you want to be able to communicate, to express yourself, to feel big in another language, whether that's English, German, Korean, whatever, if you want to be able to express yourself and feel comfortable in another language, you have to become comfortable with who you'll become through the experience of learning that. And some of that involves making mistakes. It mostly involves listening to others, to yourself, to music, to movies. Be a native speaker of that language. Listen to what they listen to. Speak to the people they speak to. The more you want to be a natural speaker, the more you have to be a natural person of that place and that culture. If you forget every language tip in the world, but you remember that to sound like a native speaker, you have to become like a native speaker, the rest is going to become easy. For those tools and strategies, yeah, you can call me. You can call Alex for German. If you want to have tips and stuff, yeah, we can help you. But if you want to be comfortable, you want to be yourself in that language, become the version of you that speaks it. The rest is easy.
Couldn't say it any better, Ben. Couldn't say it any better. I love it. Um, that's about it. Yeah, that's about it. As easy as that. Don't make the mistake of trying to be perfect. Don't make the mistake of and enjoying yourself, which happened to me in the beginning. I just focused so much on doing the things in the Spanish. It's like perfect, perfect. What is perfect at the end of the day, right? And that I like sometimes felt paralyzed too. Like I wasn't born with flawless Spanish. You know, still do some mistakes if I switch between languages. Well, guess what? That's just normal. Yeah. Even for a proficient speaker, you can make mistakes. You just correct yourself immediately, and you go go on. Yeah, I mean, uh, if you speak three, four, five, six, seven languages, it's almost impossible to be every time without mistake, like doing some mistakes. It's just part of the process, and instead of avoiding it, try to enjoy it. See it as an opportunity to learn more and grow faster, and that's it. I would say, yeah, pretty much. So, dear Ben, really enjoyed that one. Um, Please let us know. I think latourlanguage.com was your website. If somebody wants to check out your work, your yeah, life work, your passion, all what is coming with the name Ben Latour, what is coming from your professional life. Please, guys, check him out. Give him a follow. He knows what he's talking about, as he showcased really perfectly fine today. And yeah, with that being said, you guys know who I am when you're listening that on my social media. And yeah, looking forward to the next one. Ben, any last words before we drop that off?
Always a pleasure, Alex. See you next time. And to anybody watching, you got this.
All right. Bye bye.